Hey everyone, it's Ben with ALTERRA. Welcome to another deep dive episode. This series is dedicated to understanding the engineering and design that goes into developing the ALTERRA products that you know and love. In this segment, we're learning all about the ALTERRA 600 chassis. Joining me today is Jens Pearson, one of our off-road mechanical engineers. So Jens, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Ben.
So Jens, tell me a little bit about your involvement and history with developing the 600 chassis.
Well, the 600 chassis is built from the ground up, all new, all redesigned, all with the 600 platform in mind.
So Jens, how is the 600 chassis different from past model years?
Well, Ben, we took what we learned from our 570 and 700 platform and built on top of that with what we already knew, keeping the ergonomics the same and keeping that 2-inch receiver that everyone loves. We also looked at the seat ergonomics and moved the seat up by about an inch, but kept a lot of the footwell ergonomics and the rider position very similar to those platforms.
Yeah, we talked already about the engine in another one of the segments and how it narrows up the design, so it's cool to see that the chassis was really designed around that too.
Exactly. We also took the steering and we moved it forward by an inch so that you keep the same rider position, but you feel more on top of the machine, which gives you more control.
Let's talk a little bit about the cooling system. Can you tell me a little bit more about how that's been optimized?
Well, we took our cooling system from our 570 and 700 and made sure that the hot lines and the cold lines never cross so that you don't have air bubbles building in that cooling line, which can cause increased wear on your water pump.
Now we continue to talk about lowering center of gravity and centralizing the mass. What have we done to the chassis that have helped with that?
Well, as you mentioned, with our rearward tilted engine, we lowered the CG because the oil pan is so far low next to the skid plate. We also kept the gas tank low so that all that mass is as close to the skid plate as possible.
Let's talk a little bit more about the geometry of the chassis. What have we done to increase the strength and rigidity of this frame?
Like I mentioned before, it's a completely redesigned frame. So we took what we knew from our past models and we incorporated into this model with that crush zone that you may have seen on our previous models. So the bumper actually will deflect before the rest of your chassis, so you don't end up bending any of your main chassis members.
How do all these changes help benefit the rider in the end?
Well, by keeping that CG low, the vehicle feels much more responsive, and it's just an easier, more fun riding experience.
So in our engine segment, we already touched a little bit on how the engine is tilted rearward in the vehicle. Can you tell me about how the design of the chassis has changed with this engine design?
Well, beyond lowering the CG of the vehicle, we also were the first to market with that rearward tilted engine, which means we could also have a ultra short air intake path, which means you get a much more responsive throttle. We also have the exhaust routed straight out of the engine, so you don't get any of the heat that accumulates underneath the rider.
So we touched a little bit on the air intake design. Can you tell me some more about what's unique about this intake design?
Well, in addition to the more responsive throttle, it's also an oversized air filter, so you get much longer time before service intervals.
That's really good to know. Is there anything else that we've done with the ALTERRA 600 to increase the ability to service this vehicle?
Well, this vehicle has completely toolless body panels, which means you can pop off the side panel, pop off the seat, and get access to your oil filter, your spark plug, all of your service components.
Aside from the removable body plastics, is there anything else that's been done to the 600 to increase serviceability?
Well, we also have a removable subsection of the frame, the rear subsection. So you can take that off and get easy access to your engine transaxle right from there.
So the ALTERRA 600 comes in a variety of different models and special editions. Can you tell me about what some of the key differences are between these different models?
Well, with our TRV platform, we took our existing 600 chassis and extended the main frame by 6 inches. And then we developed a completely new rear subframe for your second passenger.
What about the Black Hills and Mud Pro? What's different between those models?
Well, the Black Hills comes with the gear down transaxle and the vertical steering system with the riser block that you see on all of our sleds. The Mud Pro, on the other hand, comes with all those features as well as the raised intake system and the racked radiator. Our intake system on the Mud Pro is one of the highest in the industry.
That's super cool. Well, Jens, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Ben.
If you guys want to learn more about the ALTERRA 600, be sure to check out the rest of this series. And if you have any questions, visit your local dealer or go to arctic.com.